All right, here we are with take two because I actually had a technical issue and did not send the right link to Jones von Drehel the other day. And so, yeah, we're going to keep the presentation we already did, but I just wanted to have an opportunity for the Bordeaux region, the wine expert, and the winery to all be able to chat together for a few minutes for you guys to get a peek at it. So Corinne the other day when we were all talking, she mentioned she had done some research on Jones von Drehle and their wines. And so I just thought we'd start by them kind of discussing that. And then if Diana and Dan have any more, questions or anything they want to add, and with our Bordeaux reps, I thought this would be a good opportunity. So take it away, Carrie.
I found really interesting with your vineyard, Jones von Drehle vineyard, as I mentioned, your the way that you are planting. It seems that you planted the same grape variety that we have in Bordeaux for the red. But here in Bordeaux, as I'm sure you know, but we don't have the choice. I mean, if we want to be in the appellation, AOC, it's a little bit like UAVA, American Viticultural Area. And if we want to write appellation on a label, we have to respect a certain number of rules. And one main rule will be the use of specific grape variety. That's why in Bordeaux, we have the Merlot, we have the Cap Sauv, the Cap Franc, the Petit Verdot, the Malbec, that I've seen you have in your vineyard. And we have also the Common Air. Do you have the Common Air?
No, but we are seriously looking at that grape.
I've seen that you have the Tempranillo, but we don't have it. It's more in Spain, But for the red, you really have the same grape variety we grow in Bordeaux. So that's really interesting, the link between you and the Bordeaux region. So.
And though a very different terroir, I mean, here we are much higher and on the side of a mountain, different kinds of winds, different kinds of soils. Those grapes thrive here.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
so interesting because Bordeaux is so flat, so obviously completely different in terms of just the pure landscape. I'm not sure how your climate is where you are located, if it's, because we're very close to the ocean, so we have, our climate doesn't vary too much. It doesn't go up to the very highs and the very lows. So I don't know if it's that kind of the same where you are.
Do you want me to address that, Dan? Or do you
I was going to say it's very, very variable. Some years, last year, I think we got something close to 80 inches of rain. Typically, it's more like 30 or 40 inches. Wow. We're having a very different winter this year from last winter, which doesn't affect the vines so much, but it's just, we're hoping for a more consistent, what's the word? We're hoping for a year like we had in 15 or 14 or 12 or 17 or 19. Last 2019 was amazing, but 2020, I mean, we had the cicadas, which is insect plague. We had an earthquake, which we had the biggest earthquake in North Carolina in 100 years.
Whoa.
So
do you get some frost as well?
We have a challenge with frost. Every spring we're a little bit more protected because we're higher elevation. We're at the base of a mountain range called the Blue Ridge, and so we get a lot of the pooling of the cold air tends to go further at lower elevation. So we get a little more wind flow. We get a little bit bigger change in nighttime temperatures, which is good for us. So we get this wind flow, but we get a cooling effect typically at night when 20 miles south of us. Like Jen, you're in Charlotte, right?
Just north, so yeah.
Yeah, so you're probably, nighttime temperatures are probably as much as 10, maybe even 15 degrees higher.
Oh, you really?
At night. Daytime temperatures are probably more closely, a little bit closer, but yeah.
So we don't have so many challenges talking about the climate, I think. We have, we can get some frost, but with the, you know, the oceanic climate, and well, as Joel said, we don't have very high temperature, but with the weather changing, you know, the climate is changing. So we had that summer with very high temperature, and you know what happened? I mean, that stopped the maturity, that stopped the ripeness, and then it's hard to then go on. Mid-September, it's cooler, so then it can be better. But I mean, and we don't irrigate, you know, that's the difference between you and France, and especially Bordeaux. We don't do any irrigation. That's one of the another point for the appellation, because it's forbidden. We can't. I mean, but as you know,
what do you do with young vines when you plant new vines?
We do irrigate them. We do water them. The first 3 years we do water them, but then we stop irrigation, and then we can use them for the wine. Yeah, for the young wine. Yeah, till the roots are not deep enough. Yeah, we water them. That's right.
Well, that is one similarity. Though we are allowed to irrigate, we have no need, as you had just heard, with that much rain.
Yeah.
At least we haven't since we started this.
I've seen something interesting also about the white. I mean, you're really making very different white that we have in Bordeaux, because in Bordeaux, we're using the Sauvignon Blanc, the Semillon, the Muscadelle. That's the three main grape variety we're using for the white, the sweet, and the dry. And I've seen you more using the grape variety that we can find more in the south in France. Petit Mansin, yeah.
Yeah, Semillon, Sauvignon Blanc would be we have a few plants of Sauvignon Blanc, but we've thought of planting it, but it is challenging with our climate, our humidity, and the rainfall. It tends to rot.
It's too much.
So.
And Petit Manseng has just been a beautiful grape for us. There's a lot of excitement in Virginia and North Carolina about this grape.
Which one?
Petit Manseng.
Oh, Petit Manseng. Yeah.
It's very disease resistant. It retains its acidity. That's one thing we do like about Sauvignon Blanc. We have the few plants that we have. It has beautiful acidity, but it doesn't hold up to the disease pressure that the Petit Manseng does, because it's a looser cluster, thick skin, and amazing acidity. So
very interesting. Are you making only dry? You're making only dry white, or you are also making sweet white wine?
No, we're making only dry wines.
Only dry.
Yes. There's plenty of sweet wine in North Carolina. A different type of grape is used in general. And so, we decided to go this route.
So I used to serve Jones von Drehle wines at some events in Charlotte, and people would come up to us and say, like, what do you have that's sweet? And I'm like, yeah,
nothing.
Certainly not me.
I do have one question for you about hybrids. And is Bordeaux or France beginning to think about hybrid grapes?
Yeah, we do. And especially, I know for the Bordeaux general appellation, they're thinking, and they are doing some experimentation of using other, grape variety, and some that are not used in Bordeaux for the moment. So it's just experimentation for the moment. The CIVB that is dealing with the wine merchant, the production of wine. It's we're thinking about dealing especially against the disease, or also against the weather changing. So they are, for the moment, it's really experimentation. So
and so are they true hybrids? They're not two crosses of the Nef or a different grape, but a hybrid, an American and a French grape?
It's always the same. Yeah, we're still using it's still the way we do.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, we're still using American rootstock.
Okay.
With the grape variety, the different variety they can have according to the rootstock, according to the soil we have, but it's still American rootstock. Since the Phylloxera crisis, it's still the way we're doing. So there are very few places where they are not American rootstock, especially not far from Chateau Margaux. There is an island where apparently they don't have any American rootstock, but otherwise all over Bordeaux, it's American rootstock. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
With the whole question of climate change, there is a lot of experimentation in Bordeaux at the moment. Corinne mentioned the only grape varieties we're able to use, but that's going to evolve as the years come. And the rules that are kind of set in stone and have been for centuries are starting to change just because of the climate change and the way that the grapes react. So there will be changes over the next few years, but there's a lot of experimentations going on at the moment.
Yeah, that I think that's why also some grape variety like Petit Verdot that you're using, we are planting more and more in Bordeaux. You know, that's a very difficult grape variety to grow, and the ripeness is always very difficult to get. So before, I mean, 10 or 15 years ago, we didn't get so much. But now in the Médoc, for example, they're planting more and more Petit Verdot. And that's interesting. You have another cuvée, which is Steel and Stone, no?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Where you're using much more Petit Verdot than Cabernet Sauvignon. I think it's really amazing. And in the Médoc, it will be the contrary, normally. More Cab and less Petit Verdot, even if you have some wineries that are using a lot of Petit Verdot in the blend. I really like Petit Verdot.
I do too, yes.
Yes, it's been very successful for us here, both the grape and the wine.
Excited to try it tomorrow night.
Yeah, but you have one cuvée 100%, do you?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, well, here in Bordeaux, we don't. I mean, we have, that's really the difference. I mean, we have most 95%, I would say it's blending wines, even if you can find 100% Merlot, 100% Sauvignon Blanc, for example, but you won't find any 100% Capsule, you know, it will be too tannic, you know, too harsh. And 100% Petit Verdot, I've heard that there is one estate that is making 100% Petit Verdot, but I never tasted it yet. So I have
and
to.
What about Cabernet Franc?
Cabernet Franc will be always the grape variety with the Merlot, for example, you know, in Saint-Emilion, you know, on the right bank, you have the typical blend will be Merlot, Cab Franc, very few Cabernet Sauvignon, and sometimes you can get Malbec. But Cabernet Franc will be always, I would say, the grape variety coming with the Merlot. Even if you have some Chateau Cheval Blanc, for example, that have more Cabernet Franc than Merlot, which is quite unusual, you know? So, and if you go in the Médoc, you have much more Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, very few Cabernet Franc and less, and it will be much more Petit Verdot now.
Cabernet Franc is showing great promise here, and in Virginia, it just really grows well here. So there are a lot of producers putting out a single varietal wine. So
I think you have the perfect climate, because Cabernet Franc, you know, you can find much more Cabernet Franc in the Loire Valley in France. So that's why maybe it's growing very well by you. Good.
Thank you.
And I've seen you have also how can you say that I don't know in English, you have a nice dog, which is no, you still have it?
Say that again. Oh, Chloe.
Chloe. That's Chloe. I've seen on the website that she's the, how do you say that in English?
The mascot.
The mascot?
Yes.
Do you say that as
she's
well?
She's our meter and greeter, and she is definitely the rock star here.
She sells more wine than me.
That's often the case, isn't it?
That's funny, because I was thinking, Joelle, you know, we know a winemaker, one grower. She's a woman, Chateau Boutinet. They have a big dog, you know, that is the mascot as well. So that's funny to find the same in Jones von Drehle vineyard.
Well, we have people visit who have never been before, and the first thing they say is, "Where's the dog?"
There you go.
So
I have just one question. How is all the visit organized in your vineyard? I mean, you visit the cellar with all the explanation of the winemaking process, and then you do the tasting, or it's different?
Well, this year is certainly
Not this year.
Totally different, yes. Normally, people come to visit us, and they generally, we provide a tasting first at our tasting bar. And then if they want, we will take them back to the cellar, and Dan will give them a tour back there.
Okay.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Over here it's very different. When you have an appointment, you kind of have to do this walk through the vineyards and to see the cellars and the vat room, etc. They make it, the wineries make it more or less long depending on the interest, but you kind of do the walk through and then end with the tasting. So I know it's a very different way around in the US.
We generally don't tour people through the vineyard. Our vineyard can be seen. You know, it's 30-acre vineyard, and the winery sits on a hill that overlooks the vineyard. But generally, people don't tour the vineyard.
They drive through it coming in.
Right.
Coming in.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Got it.
Yeah, I think it's different in Bordeaux because we have the vineyard are quite close to each other. So you go in what we call a chateau. You know, a chateau in Bordeaux is a wine estate. It's not really a big castle, a fancy castle, but it's a winery, a chateau. And you drive there and you visit. Most of the time, you will have all the history, you know, of the chateau, because there is always a very long story, you know, because we're making wine for ages.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have story, different families, and you can hear the story of the chateau, of all the families, and then you go inside really the winery and you visit, and they explain all the winemaking process. You can see the barrels there. They explain the aging process as well. And at the end, you go in the tasting room and you taste different wine. And there is, well, not so much. I know in the US, you're much more well organized than we are, but sometimes you have a nice boutique where people can buy the wine or other kind of goodies and stuff.
So when people visit, they cannot, in general, cannot buy wine at
It depends on the winery. More and more, not all wineries have a wine shop, which I think is a huge mistake, because when you're there, that's when you buy. And so more and more are, you know, making these proper wine shops. But up until a few years ago, there were a lot of places where you could not buy wine. The wine system in Bordeaux goes through wine merchants, which is a whole different story. But more and more now, yes, you can purchase wine, and they can also ship directly to the US more and more. So it's definitely becoming easier.
Well, remember, we are extremely regulated when it comes to alcohol. I mean, we went through 30 years of prohibition and couldn't taste a drop. So, you know, it's taking this country a long time. And, you know, North Carolina started prohibition before the rest of the country, and they kept it after the rest of the country.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, we are very regulated.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's how I used to go to events in the area where I live, and there was never wine being sold. And I never understood that because I don't drink beer. And so after doing all this research on our state laws and everything, I realized why, because you have to be able to serve at an event here in the state, you have to be associated with a winery or a brewery. Well, breweries are easy because they're all around. They can be anywhere, but wineries are not. So that's when I looked for a winery to partner with to bring wine to events in the area, and that's how I came across Jones von Drehle. So yeah, it is very regulated, especially in North Carolina. It's harder here than where the state I'm from. So it's interesting because every state has different laws, you know.
Different excise rates. Each state can lay. We all have the same set of federal rules, but each state can layer on its own set of particular state, and then it can even go down to the very county. Some counties, I think, are there any dry counties in North Carolina still?
I think there are, not many. It's slowly changing, but here we are, 2021, and there's still counties that won't let you purchase alcohol in. So
really?
Yeah, when I started working down in North Carolina, you couldn't buy liquor or wine or beer in the grocery store in Yadkin County. that's changed now. So.
And for a while, you couldn't buy it on Sundays. You could have it in restaurants, but you couldn't buy it.
You still can't buy it before noon on Sunday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've heard that in different states, and even some. I know in South Africa that's the case also. But there are also other countries in the world where that happens. But I've heard that several times.
Yeah,
and I will go on and on about Norway and their laws for. It's insane. Like it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they just like put the black cloth in front of it all. And it's like it was a Saturday. I was like, I can't buy any wine right now.
Very depressing.
Wow.
Well, here in Bordeaux, you can buy wine more or less every day of the week, and you know, within reasonable hours, I would say. So,
well, I will tell you, it's a very humbling experience. I mean, I'm not even sure we would describe ourselves as infants compared to Bordeaux, but I mean, because as you said, you've been doing this for thousands of years, you know, and it's just, it's pretty amazing to know that this industry has lasted that long in, you know.
And to be honest, it's more and more interesting these, you know, but having a winery from the US side, what we call the New World wines, and comparing them to Bordeaux wines is so interesting, because with the same grape, and see how it grows and how it evolves, and how the terroir is very different, how you can make something that's quite similar, or it's all very, very interesting, especially for the up and coming generation of winemakers. And often you have families who have wineries in Bordeaux and will have one in Argentina or Napa Valley or in different parts of the world. So it's more and more they're able to compare between the two different wines using the same grapes on different sides of the world. So it's very interesting for us.
And what is interesting is that you can find now, I think, good wine everywhere. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, it's not a place where normally you were some years ago. You were growing vines, but now you here and you are doing. I mean, you're making wine. So, and I think now we know a lot about the winemaking process and everything. The establishment of the vineyard, everything is important. We know more and more, and I think there is competition. You know, Bordeaux will not be only one anymore. I mean, you have good wine everywhere in the world, so we have also to think of that. So and Bordeaux, what is interesting with Bordeaux is that Bordeaux is really opening more and more doors, you know, of the castle, of the chateau, and they are offering to the visitors very interesting visit. Not only the visit of the winery and then the tasting, you know, you can have picnic, you can have nice experiences, you know, you can just take a bicycle, go around the vineyard, visit the different chateau. You can, I mean, it's really amazing, all the different ways how you can visit the Bordeaux vineyard. Really.
It's kind of a necessity now, though, isn't it? As you just said, given the competition around the world, basically. And so people have to figure out how to promote their region.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I love the idea of experiential, you know, travel in general. So that's just, you know, you want to be more than just visiting a place. You want to experience it. And,
definitely.
You just gave me a great idea for future travel planning also while we were listening, because I'm like, okay, so I take a winery from the States and we ship the wine over there, and then we do a side-by-side tasting so you can see the
interesting.
Earth.
There you go.
As you taste it, I'm like, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. It's a very, very good idea. Very good idea. Yeah.
We've actually talked about that on this side, because we are just finishing a new building that will have an event space in it and a catering kitchen, and to bring a winemaker from France over here would be very exciting.
Definitely. Well, we can certainly help you with that. The perfect winemaker. We have a lot of connections between Green and myself, so definitely.
They come visit you, and then you go visit them.
That's right. Sounds good.
Joelle can organize anything in the vineyard. Just trust her. She can organize anything. So she is the right person. Really.
Oh, I love that.
But I mean as well.
Karen as well. We make a good team.
Oh, good.
Well, I'm so glad this worked out, and thank you especially to our friends who are talking to us in the evening their time. So we really, really appreciate that.
Well, it's been great. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. It was lovely.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.